What is up, everybody? Welcome to week 14 of the NFL. My name is Jacob Meadows. I am not Mean Gene. I am here for the coach's quarters. Today, Mean Gene could not be here. Thoughts and prayers out to him and his family. However, I do have a special guest with me today in studio. This is one of my best friends, somebody who knows very little about sports, so I thought he would give an interesting perspective on the games that are going on. This is also the bachelor that kept me out of the office a couple weeks ago. Please give a very warm welcome for Mr. Bryce, the Italian Stallion Shepherd. What is up, baby?
Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Happy to be here, man. Happy to be here.
This is going to be a fun show, guys. We've got AJ, the man with the man with the plan behind the glass wall, and we've got Bryce here in studio. This should be good. Hopefully, you're listening, me and Gene. I hope you're having a much better day than you could be, brother. But so we are going to jump right into week 14. So we had 6 teams on bye week this week. And the games that were going on this today for this Sunday and for Thursday. Thursday was a much better game than what we had going on this Sunday, but there were some good matchups with lots of playoff implications. And we're going to jump straight into the Packers versus Lions matchup. I do believe we have a soundbite waiting for us to kick this off. Mr. AJ.
They're going. They are going. And then Goff falls down, but Montgomery is able to pick up the first down.
Long enough on his feet. Let's watch his feet. Yeah, he gets stepped on by Glasgow, the left guard, and somehow he reaches out. Once he got it to Montgomery, what a call, by the way. Are you kidding me? 4 or 5 now. College ball, he's down. This is the pro game. He's good to go.
So that was Jared Goff winning the game against the Packers for the most part. Yeah. And Bryce, I know you're a Packers fan. I know you're marrying into a Packers family, which is incredible. But how do you feel? Because it looked like the Packers, they played a great game. The Lions somehow eked it away. How do you feel about the trajectory for the Packers to end this season?
Yeah, I think so far they're playing about how I thought they'd play. Going into the year where we're at right now. Losing 2 to the Lions does hurt. Right. I think the one at home hurt a little bit more than the one last week. I think getting the run game established early is big for the Packers. And I think LaFleur waited just a little bit too long. Right. When Josh Jacobs is going, the Packers are going, it takes pressure off of Jordan Love. Yeah. And when he has no pressure on him, I think Jordan Love is one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. It's a bold statement, I know. That's how I feel. That's how I feel.
He's good. Yeah. He's really good. He's played well beyond my expectations this season. I wouldn't call him the best in the NFL, but I mean, he has had a great season. He does look good. And when Josh Jacobs is rolling, the Packers are rolling. But like you said, you think that LaFleur waited a little too long to get the run game engaged. Josh Jacobs did have a pretty decent day, all things considered. I mean, he had 18 carries for 66, scored 3 tutters, though. So that was, I mean, he was the catalyst for their offense. Maybe is there something they could do to boost their run game, in your opinion? Just because, I mean, he is their only guy, like he is their primary back, but AJ Dillon's not that guy. Yep. So like, how would they get it going quicker? Because they can only run him so many times before he gets worn out. Yeah. And the Detroit Lions are a good team. This is number 1 in the NFC. They have a great defense, even minus Aiden Hutchinson, who might be coming back, by the way. But what could they have done better?
The Lions are tough. First off, we need to just go ahead and say the Lions are a very, very good football team, right? But I think when you go back to Thanksgiving night with the Packers against the 49ers, you're putting Jordan Love in 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2. Then you can take a little shot. If you don't get it, you go back to Josh Jacobs, get 3 or 4, it's first down. Kind of similar to what the Lions do week in and week out with the 2-headed monster that they have in the backfield. Sense, that's absolutely phenomenal. Best running back duo.
Sonic and Knuckles. Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, without a doubt. But you can't look too much into this game against the Lions. The Lions are the cream of the crop, I think, right now in the NFC. And I personally would really like to watch them go at it for a 3rd time in the playoffs. I think it's good TV. It's good football. I think 2 of the best teams in the NFC. But the Eagles are right there too. So
agree with that. But just as a side note, I skipped over this early on. You can listen to us at youtube.com/@ESPN Houston. or we are streaming on Twitch as well. This is Houston 97.5. But yeah, back to what we were talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's the Lions are the cream of the crop. Dan Campbell's got balls the size of Saturn,
Yeah.
right? Like all
Yeah.
he does is go for it when
Yeah.
nobody else would, which is kind of that has become the Detroit Lions, which is super cool in my opinion. Not something that they've never had before.
Yeah, and you're watching the game, and it's the 4th down and 1 at the end, and Herbie, everyone in the booth is saying, "Oh, kick the field goal here." Jordan Love has 40 seconds, no timeout. I think what Dan Campbell did, I think that's what every coach should do. I think watching football and playing football like that, trusting your team to say, "Hey, if we can't get 1 yard, we don't deserve to win the game tonight."
I'm right there with you. I mean, I know what analytics say, right? Like the analytics always say, you punt, your defense gives you the best opportunity to keep playing, right? To stay competitive, to be in the game. But on inches 1, maybe 2 yards out, I mean, it blows my mind that there aren't more coaches like Dan Campbell who are willing to go for it. And give their offense the opportunity to score more points, which, mind you, that's actually how you win games.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, he did it early in the game too on his side of the field, which resulted in the Packers scoring a touchdown. Though, kind of put the Packers back in the game, but it's staying consistent with your players, and I think that's the most exciting thing about the Lions is they're pretty bought into Dan Campbell's mentality, and when you watch them play, that's what it is. They're banged up in the secondary right now, and Jordan Love only threw for 206.
Which is good
in a dome, right? And 1 touchdown, and against a secondary that's banged up. And when they get healthy, Packers were banged up too in the second half.
Yes,
we lost some guys in the secondary, but yeah, I think the Lions are just fun to watch. I hard to say that being a Packers fan. If the fiance is listening at home, so sorry. But the Lions are fun to watch.
They are, and like I'll doubling in on what you said, like everybody on that team goes to war for Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Every week they go to war for Dan Campbell. And I think that might be the reason why the Lions are finally able to make a push deep into the playoffs. And I mean, I want them to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I know as a Packers fan, you have to disagree with that. But I mean, it's the Lions. Like they've
been through enough.
Yeah, like
they've been through enough.
It's been years of misery. They're basically the Cleveland Browns of the NFC, historically speaking. They just had Barry Sanders, who was great, Megatron, who was great, Matt Stafford, who was great. It amounted to absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So they're the Cleveland Browns of the NFC, and I want to see the Lions go the distance.
Yeah. And I think, and even talking about it, I think just how good Jared Goff has looked since the Texans game.
Yeah. 5 picks.
He was my fantasy quarterback when he threw 5 picks that week. That was tough to kind of, look at and watch the game and just know.
Sure.
That's
you win
what's
some,
happening
you lose
to
some.
me. You win some, you lose some. But I mean, even against the Packers, he threw for 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards. I mean, Jared Goff, who would have thought him and Dan Campbell are a perfect fit? But he almost reminds me of the Jared Goff that played in LA with McVay.
I have to agree. And honestly, so Jared Goff is the only quarterback outside of Lamar Jackson that I would peg as a possible MVP candidate. He is not who I think, nor who I want to win the award. But if a quarterback had to win it with his efficiency throughout this season, right? He's had so many games where he almost has a perfect passer rating. He almost never misses. The Texans was a complete outlier for his season, right? Like he hasn't had 5 picks any other game this year. And normally he doesn't miss a pass until the end of the 4th quarter. I think his efficiency is something that should carry him to the MVP rankings only because it's something that we don't see.
Yeah.
You have so many quarterbacks week in and week out that, they may play well, but they don't play perfect. And Jared Goff has been a perfect game manager as well as somebody who can push the envelope all season so far.
Yeah, and I think it makes it easier to be a game manager, like we talked about when you have Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield.
Oh yeah.
And then you can also, slip it out to Jameson Williams, who could break 1 tackle and no one's catching him.
Just
and
slips away. Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top receivers in the league, gets open, gets separation. May have been a pass interference that was missed in that late in that game against the Packers, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, they're just a solid football team, and I think if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, you should feel good. You've lost to this team twice, and it's been a 1-score game.
Yep, both times.
And I think I don't know if Jordan Love said it, but I think it was after the game. He said, "I hope we get a 3rd shot at those guys. Let's get into the playoffs and let's see what happens."
And that might be the most exciting game for the NFC in the playoffs is if they do end up matching up. How about Tim Patrick bringing in 2 tutters? I mean, Tim Patrick, somebody he's missed the last couple of years with injury, came out of Denver. Denver just got rid of him like he was nobody. Comes in, he hasn't been super involved with this Detroit team, but the Green Bay had a hard time with him in the red zone.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, again, signs of a good team when guys can just step up and play. It's Tim Patrick hasn't really been involved in the offense much, but when they need him to make a play late in the game or in the red zone, he's there to make a play.
Mhm.
That's good coaching.
That is good coaching.
Yeah.
You are very, very correct about that. And as good as the coaching is, I am worried that they're going to lose both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, their OC and DC this season after the playoffs end. I believe they're both going to get head coaching roles wherever it is they go. But it's been magical watching them build the Lions of all teams.
Yes, it's good for football watching the Lions be who they are.
The Lions being good is good for football. I absolutely agree.
It's not good as a Packers fan, but it's great for football, right? But the Eagles are still out there too. I know we'll talk about them a little bit later.
Oh yeah.
But
all right, so we are going to go ahead and shut this segment down. We are going to go to a quick commercial break. We are the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5.
This is the Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back from our break. This is the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston. I am joined once again by Mr. Bryce Shepard, one of my best friends in life. And we are about to start rolling once more. We have the Saints versus the New York Giants next up. And this game was a barn burner, to say the least.
Yeah, it was my nap game today, is what I'm kind of calling it. Middle afternoon on a Sunday. It's raining outside here in Houston today. Got a little bit of chilly weather coming in, right, AJ? Raining a little bit, and it was nice just to lay on the couch, recline a little bit, and shut my eyes for pretty much this whole game.
This was a rough one. The Saints end up winning 14-11 over a just depleted Giants team. We talked about it before the show actually came on. I don't think the Giants win another game without Danny Dimes. I mean, they shouldn't win another game this season, right?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things you don't know what you don't really know what you got until it's gone. All right, that's kind of how I feel about Daniel Jones right now for the Giants, and Who was it? Malik Neighbors a few weeks ago said it's not really a quarterback problem going on in New York. I think that's what he said. And it's kind of becoming, pretty clear that it wasn't a quarterback problem.
It feels like that was clear to probably the entire continental United States outside of the Giants ownership. I mean, they really thought Danny Dimes was the problem. And, there's only so much you can do when you don't have an O-line. I mean, Malik Neighbors is great. Darius Slayton's a great receiver. They do have Tyrone Tracy at running back now, who has played really,
kind
really
of
well.
emerged as a really good back.
Yeah,
right?
but
I think he was a receiver first, and then they moved him to, to play running back. Tough runner. I think he's the guy who's putting the ball in the end zone the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, they suck. Like there's no way that there's no way you can avoid that. Like AJ, as our resident Cowboys fan, I mean, have you started to feel bad for the Giants yet?
No, absolutely not.
Good.
Never.
They're just so bad.
Never.
And a lot of it, I believe, Brian Daboll, bad head coach. I don't think that he is a great head coach. I thought he was a terrific
great
OC.
offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Josh Allen is Josh Allen because of Brian Daboll.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I mean, he had a great first season too, though. So that's the thing. But they had more talent and stuff like that. So I mean, but it's an organizational malpractice.
Yes.
Honestly, that's what it is, really. So
Agreed. I could not believe that the owner came out in defense of the GM. He said John Mara's here to stay, Brian Daboll's here to stay, and then they got rid of Danny Dimes. And they really looked America in the face. And they're like, our team's going to be better for this. And like, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. You can plug and play any quarterback you want into that system. Prime Tom Brady would struggle with this New York Giants team. Prime Peyton Manning. You could have prime Dan Marino. It doesn't matter. Like nobody's going to come in and make an immediate impact because the team is bad.
Oh, it was just a heartbreaker at the end, too. They actually had a nice little drive about to go down and tie the game. And I was super excited for overtime as that would have extended the nap a little bit. But it gets blocked.
Saints made a great play. No, you can't take it away from the Saints.
He hurdled the guy and got to the ball.
He plamalued it, and it was beautiful. I mean, he jumped over it. He blocked it. They didn't go to overtime. And again, you got to feel somewhat bad for the Giants, but they also dug their own grave on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just score 11 points in a game and expect to come away with a win or go to OT.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
and congrats to the Saints. It's a win. They got a win. They got a dub.
They did.
It wasn't a pretty one, but a win's a win in the National Football League.
They're still alive in the NFC South. It's very obvious that they, there's only one team that looks like they're even trying to win that division this year. And week in and week out, sometimes it's hard to tell that they want to either, which we'll talk about the Buccaneers here in a little bit. But we'll
talk about the Panthers a little bit too.
We sure will.
Yeah.
And the Saints they're inconsistent. They're bad one week. They're great another week. I mean, they look like the best team in the NFL the first 2 weeks of the season, and they have just been very
well. I don't mean to say anything to AJ though, but the Saints had the Cowboys on the schedule in one of the first 2 weeks of the season, so made them look pretty good.
Rent free.
Oh man, yeah. So props to the Saints. They did end up pulling off a nice win against the Giants, sort of, I guess. But moving on, Falcons versus the Vikings. This was actually a good game.
Yeah, how good are the Vikings though?
But it's hard to say. They're very good. They have 2 losses. The Vikings are a very good team. They don't wake up in the first half.
Nope.
Every game's competitive in the first half. And in the second half, it's like the ghost of Sam Darnold has awakened, and he is able to just do whatever he pleases. And I mean, this game was no different. Aaron Jones looked much better in the second half. Justin Jettis scored 2 touchdowns in the second half.
Yeah, I appreciated that for fantasy this week. I'm in the losers, consolation bracket, but it's still nice to see how the points are racking up with Justin Jefferson. But I think that's when the offense works a little bit, and I think the last few, what they said, this was his first touchdown since October. I think for Justin Jefferson, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. I mean, with how electric and how exciting he is to just play football.
First time to score a touchdown, but he makes it almost 2 or over 100 yards every game.
He's right around the 100-yard mark. He just wasn't getting in the end zone. And but yeah, I think the Vikings are kind of one of those dangerous teams too. The NFC North, to be completely honest, is
loaded,
wildly competitive with a bunch of really, really good football teams.
Oh yeah.
And if you're the Vikings, I think you have a little decision to make. Like, what do you do with Sam Darnold? We talked about it a little bit before the show, But I think that the team rallies around Darnold. It's been a resurgence. He's been really fun to watch. He was an MVP. He was in the MVP conversation for a while.
He's still in my
There.
MVP conversation.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. So, I mean, what do you get? You're just going to let a, potential MVP walk, and it looks like the team is playing really well with him at QB.
Well, they're going to have to pay him. That's going to be the biggest deal. Is they're going to have to open the coffers for him. And I think with JJ McCarthy on the roster, and they sign Danny Dimes, I just don't think they have to. I am a true AJ's behind the glass shaking his head.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna sign him to a big contract because they have McCarthy. I mean, they invested so much in him, and then
Yep.
I mean, if you want to have a backup, you would hypothetically try to see if Daniel Jones in that system because Sam Darnold he's benefited well in that Kevin O'Connell system too. So I don't think that they'll pay him a lot. But one of the teams that needs a quarterback in free agency, I think that they'll throw the bag at Sam Darnold potentially,
Yeah,
or
I
a
agree.
bridge quarterback, or even try him out as their franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Where do you think a good place is? for Darnold?
Well, see, the thing about like the Giants or Raiders, they're gonna have high draft picks, so they may be trying to look like for Shador. I think it would be perfect for him to be in Las Vegas, and then like you can maybe make the argument that New York should try to get Cam Ward. But if one of those teams want to bring in a veteran to like help them, maybe he could be one of them. It just depends on the situation as well.
I would love a little reunion with the Jets. Jets.
Oh,
Jets,
yeah.
Jets.
That'd be a nuts reunion. I can give you another possible landing spot for him if he doesn't end up, shooting for the stars and trying to get a $40 million contract. Miami has the worst quarterback room in the NFL behind Tua Tagovailoa. So if Sam were to take a slightly reduced contract, just want to play for a team that really, in all reality and all respects, should be a contender, he could go to Miami, back up Tua, possibly win a ring. But he could give Miami the best depth. It would be the same thing as Minnesota, right? He steps into Minnesota. Honestly, for me, hopes weren't high in Minnesota, but they do have a good roster. So he steps into Minnesota, ends up the starter, and look at him. He has had a terrific year. And if he were to go to Miami, he would immediately have 1B for the greatest wide receiving core he's ever had. I mean, he's got a real good one in Minnesota with Jordan Addison and Justin Jettis. But you go to Miami, you might still have Tyreek Hill. You have Jalen Waddle. You have 19 running backs that would be a starter on any other of the 31
You got a
NFL
really good
teams.
tight end in Miami.
They
too.
Jonnu Smith is on my fantasy team. Yeah, he's amazing. He
Yeah.
catches everything.
Yeah.
So like you plug and play Sam Darnold there. He may not be the starter, but if something were to happen to Tua, all of a sudden Miami's not just cooked until he comes back.
Yeah. I agree. I
Just
agree.
a thought.
So we could flip this a little bit too, though. What are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins right now with Atlanta?
So the Kirk Cousins is a problem. I really do think like this is a rough spot for the Falcons to be in. This offseason, they do all of these things, right? They bring in all of these high-priced free agents. You bring in Captain Kirk from Minnesota, who won that trade, by the way.
Yeah.
But you bring in Kirk from Minnesota, and he is, I said this last week, and I'm going to double down on it again. He has turned into late career Matt Schaub for the Houston Texans, where all he does is throw interceptions. I mean, he's got all the intangibles. He's got a very good offense. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Kirk is making terrible decisions. He is getting pressured a little too much, but this is not the Kirk Cousins that was the king of consistency in Minnesota.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we looked it up, 9 interceptions since week 9. And he hadn't thrown a touchdown pass since week 9. I mean, he threw for 344 today. But when I look at it, AJ, I want to know your thoughts. What about Michael Penix? Do you give him a shot right now?
I think you have to soon because like the Falcons, they're kind of in a similar position they have been the past couple of years without a quarterback, and now they're 6-7, falling behind. And even though they won those 2 games against Tampa Bay's 7-6 now, so they're at number 1. So I feel like maybe next week if Kirk just is playing bad, you might even try to put him in during the game and see what happens. Because I mean, at this point, you drafted him in the first round for a reason, so it's apparent now with how Kirk has played that clock is starting to run.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, they drafted him in the first round. It's not like Michael Penix was taken in the 3rd or 4th round, and hey, we were gonna give this guy some time to learn from Kirk and see, how he's playing. This guy was drafted him in the first round. He's brought in to play.
Right. The only obligation is the contract that you sign Kirk Cousins to. That's the one thing. So.
Which I
is
think everybody was
significant.
scratching their head draft night when they took Michael Penix,
Right.
right? But right now, maybe they did see something. And
It's possible that he should be more than an insurance policy at this point. I mean, what do you have to lose, right? Tampa Bay's got sole possession of the NFC South, and I understand that Captain Kirk's a proven veteran. There's a chance that it could click, but if it were going to click, don't you think it would have happened by now? They should be playing better than they are. He should be playing better than he is with the tools at his disposal. Why not give Michael Penix a chance?
I agree. agree.
Yeah, same. I agree too. I mean, if they're like, I don't know who they play against next week, but if they're starting to play bad, Kirk looks inconsistent. You have to try something. You need a spark because you're still trying to make the playoffs. So.
Exactly. And it's not like it all falls on Michael Penix's shoulders, right? I mean, Atlanta has a terrific run game. Bijan
Right.
Robinson and Tyler Algier are one of the best 1-2s in the NFL. So as long as you're not throwing 3 interceptions a game and duffing the ball every third throw, I mean, realistically speaking, your offense will move. There's going to be flow to your game plan.
Yeah, and they got the Raiders on the road next Monday night, December
Winnable game.
16th.
They better.
Maybe a time to give him some reps, maybe.
I mean, if he looks bad against the Raiders, then yeah, you
Then
got
you know,
it's time.
for
Yeah.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
I agree.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Just because, I mean, this is Raheem Morris's team. You know, he absolutely doesn't want to tank his opportunity to make the playoffs. But the clock is ticking. The season is winding down, and if you're not going to win with Kirk Cousins, there's no reason not to know what you got with your first round draft pick
Yeah,
quarterback.
but I mean, hard not to cheer for Kirk Cousins. So,
Yeah,
you know.
I love Captain Kirk.
So watching him struggle has been kind of tough. You know, just he seems like a good guy. You know, everything you've heard about him, great guy. Guys in the locker room. love
Yeah,
him. And just, he's struggling a little bit. He is coming off a pretty big injury.
It was a big injury, and I do think maybe he was possibly returned or he brought back a little early,
so.
but it shouldn't matter this much. He's had time.
Agree.
But all right, we are going to go to a commercial break. This is the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.
You're listening to The Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
for the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. I am Jacob Meadows with the Coach's Quarters. This is Mr. Bryce Shepard, my special guest in-house, and we are the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5. For this segment, we are going to jump right into the Browns versus the Steelers, which is one of my most disappointing games of the night. I'm not going to lie. I really thought Famous Jameis was going to pull this one off. He absolutely did not. Browns season is over, which, I mean, it already was. Don't get me wrong. But the Steelers look good today.
The Steelers are very good. I think you and I talked about it before the show and at the break. I think this is my pick to win the AFC. With the defense that they have, and the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. They find a way to win football games. It hasn't looked pretty at times, but they win.
Good teams win games.
But I think the Steelers are a team they could fall behind because they may not be able to move the ball. I think there's still some questions on the Chiefs offense a little bit. Just hasn't been what we thought it would be. You know,
True. Yeah.
And Russell Wilson's in the time machine right now. It looks like the guy who used to wear number 3 for the Seahawks. Doesn't run it quite as well. A little bit older now,
A little
but
slow now.
the decision making still there. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes the right decisions. He threw for 158, 2 touchdowns today, and that's all he needed to do. You know.
Yeah, he managed the game well, and their run game was working pretty well. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren both got involved. So it was, the Steelers are, before I go any further, by the way, Mean Gene is a massive diehard Steelers fan, so he's going to absolutely love this bid.
Good.
But the Steelers look great. And the Browns did have a chance to come back in the end of this game. They duffed a punt with 3-something left to go in the fourth quarter. They had a chance to come back at least some. They ended up losing 27-14. So it would have been a climb, but they ended up screwing that up. And I do think Jameis Winston missed Cedric Tillman. Yeah, Cedric Tillman. He's still out with a concussion. But the Steelers are the most well-rounded football team in the AFC, I think.
I completely agree. And that's kind of what I was saying. I think they're the easy pick right now when you watch them play. I just think you can't score on the Steelers, and that makes it really, really, really tough. And TJ Watt's phenomenal. The secondary's playing great. You got Minka back there still leading the secondary, doing what he's been doing since he got into the league, really since he was at Alabama.
Yeah.
So but I do like Jameis Winston. I think for the Browns moving forward, he might be the guy. Maybe give him one more shot next year.
The Deshaun Watson contract situation's what makes that a little
tied
murky.
into that. But the team seems to play a little bit better with Jameis. He has the worst timed interceptions I've ever seen by any quarterback.
But he's good. He's
good.
Jameis Winston, football guy. Like, he is good at football. He does just make the most inopportune interceptions. And it's not all his fault, but it is 90%.
Yeah. It's just the timing of them, right? They're not early in the game where you can kind of bounce back. It's the late interceptions, right? And turning the ball over late. But, I think Nick Chubb needs to get going a little bit. He's just coming back from injuries, but he's got to get going a little bit. But they played the Steelers today. It's hard to look at a game and say, you played bad. And it was it's always a physical game when these two teams play, but the Steelers they're just better, and that's why they won.
I just hate that it didn't justify, but it justified George Pickens' ridiculous comments after their first matchup, because after they played the first time, it was the Blizzard game, and George Pickens after the game comes out and he's like, man, they only beat us because it was the snow. And then, nice sunny day, everything's perfect.
Yeah, beautiful day, nice weather there.
Yeah. So, that sucked, but it is what it is, and it is going to be interesting to see what what the Browns end up doing next year, just because of the Deshaun Watson contract, the way Jameis Winston has led this team. I do think Jameis saved Stefanski's career, their head coach. I do think that this is going to be what ends up saving him.
Yeah. So. I would agree. I like what you said. Just stick with Jameis for a little while, but everybody's got to watch out for the Steelers. I think if you're the Bills or the Chiefs, everyone knows right now the Steelers are for real. I think they kind of have solidified that over the last few weeks. I think there were some questions when Justin Fields was still at quarterback.
Yes.
Because could you throw the ball when you needed to? But like we said, Russ is playing in a time machine right now, and he looks like the old Russell Wilson.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of getting saved, how about the Raiders versus the Buccaneers? Baker Mayfield is the savior of this Tampa Bay team. They are going to potentially win their division for the second year in a row under Baker. And it was not a pretty game because the Raiders definitely kept it closer than what I would think. They won by 15 points, right? So It wasn't a close game, but there were some dumb mistakes made. It did look like Baker couldn't find Mike Evans for most of the game. He did have a crazy hurdle in the middle of the game, but before we get rolling with this, we do have a soundbite for this game.
This is Baker throwing towards the end zone. It's caught. McMillan, touchdown.
Watch Mayfield. He's going to fake just a quick little hitch. And you see the corner out there, Jack Jones. It looks like there's a safety help over the top.
Jalen McMillan had a freaking day today. It may not have been Mike Evans. Chris Godwin might still be on the shelf, but Jalen McMillan scored 2 touchdowns today and was Baker's favorite target.
Yeah, I think Baker just does a good job of that week in and week out. Every time you watch Baker, he does. Mike Evans is obviously the clear number one in Tampa Bay. Super, I think one of the most underrated careers ever.
Oh, yeah.
From a wide
First
receiver.
ballot.
First ballot, without a doubt. But Baker just does a good job of distributing the football where it needs to go. And again, Baker's another guy who a few years ago, you didn't really know where this career was going. You kind of thought, number one overall pick, is he going to stay in the league? And he's found a nice little home in Tampa Bay. And I think the way he plays, he's another exciting guy
Yes.
to watch. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of passion. And I think as you play in the NFL, guys kind of rally around that.
He's a team guy.
Yeah.
The team loves him. I think the fans in Tampa do as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's hard not to because he bleeds for the game, right? Like he shows like all his commercials that he used to do when he was with the Cleveland Browns. Like he lives at the stadium.
Yeah.
Like it's just like he's that guy.
Yeah. And I mean, he started in Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's tough to start in Cleveland.
It
We've
prepares
seen a
you to
lot of
win.
guys go there and not really pan out. But I think, it's kind of the second chance story. Same with Sam Darnold. He started with the Jets, and he looks like we said, he looks like the guy we thought he would be coming out of the draft now that he's with the Vikings. But I think the Bucks are for real too. I think they got a chance. They have a chance to steal a game from someone if they get into the playoffs because they are good. And like I said, you can tell they're a team.
Yeah. And they're also pretty well rounded. They may not be Pittsburgh level, but they have a good defense, right? Levante David is still one of the best linebackers in the game. They have a good offense. I know Chris Godwin's not coming back this season, but it does feel like they can find anybody they need to fill a role week in and week out. They have a good tight end in Cade Otton. They have a great run game between Bucky Irving and Rashad White. Like this is a team that it's built to win games. They don't always do it, but they're going to be competitive in every game they play.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And then you look at the flip side. We talk about the Raiders, and they do have a bright spot. I think Brock Bowers is a big time bright spot. Wow.
No kidding.
I think what he's been able to do, an okay day today, 3 catches for 49 yards. But I think he's right at the top of the list of, even when you put receivers in, comparing him, how many receiving yards he has for the year. He's in the top 10.
He's breaking every tight end rookie record that's ever existed this season for a bad team.
Yeah, and I think they'll get better. We've talked a little bit about maybe changing some quarterback, things up, maybe a potential landing spot for Sam Darnold, right?
I think he would be good there. And I think could you imagine Brock Bowers with a quarterback that could actually deliver the ball around the offense and actually open people up?
Yeah, because he's so exciting right now, and he does things in the run game and the passing game. I mean, we all saw it at Georgia. I don't think we thought it would translate this well, but he was the real deal.
Yeah.
So I mean, all the accolades he had at Georgia were very well warranted, right? Because he's kind of shown who he is in the NFL too.
Oh yeah. Speaking of people that have really proven everybody right, how about the Jaguars and Titans? Will Levis, the Mayo Menace, that guy is awful. He is not a great quarterback. He looked terrible today, but I mean, we've got to talk about it because it was an important game, right? The AFC South is still technically open. I think the Texans are probably going to lock it up, but I mean, I thought the Jaguars were going to be the second best team in the division this year. I thought the Titans were going to be at the bottom. The Titans had a better record than the Jags going into this game. And this game ended, Jacksonville won 10-6.
Yeah.
This was, the toilet bowl, so to speak, right? Like, this was awful. Like, AJ's behind the glass shaking his head right now. Like, this
was my second nap game, by the way, AJ, in case you're wondering. This is the other one I napped too.
That makes sense. People who are in punishment deserve to watch this game. It's all over.
It was awful. Mac Jones proved that he was the same Mac Jones that, left New England. And then on the flip side, like, again, I can't say it enough. Like, I believed in Will Levis. I drafted Will Levis in 2 out of my 3 fantasy leagues this season, right? Because I saw what he did at the back half of last year. And I was like, you know what? Maybe he'll get better. He had DeAndre Hopkins. He had Calvin Ridley. I was like, this is going to work. He's going to figure out how to play football. He's got a strong arm. He can run the ball. And that dude he's not great. Like, he's not great. And I don't even think it's coaching. I think Callahan's a good coach. I think that he's able to put people in positions that they need to be in. I don't think that Tony Pollard is a 3-down back, but I do think Tony Pollard is better than the running back that we see in Tennessee this season. I thought he was great for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a good player.
He ran for 102 today. If we have a bright spot for the Titans, I think it would be
but
Tony.
This is what his second,
Pollard.
Third week all season he's been able to do that. It's because the Titans have no sort of consistency on offense.
I think it's a lack of weapons too in Tennessee. We can talk about Will Levis, but you just have Calvin Ridley, and
they couldn't use D-Hop. They had some semblance of weapons. He's looked pretty decent in Kansas City. He was a stud for Houston.
Yeah.
I get it. He's on the back end of his career, but like they they struggle to hit anybody. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what kind of talent you have. You should be able to do something with something, and they cannot.
Yeah, I mean, when Calvin Ridley's your number one, would he be a number one anywhere else?
Number
in your
2
opinion?
probably.
Number 2.
No,
Yeah.
probably a strong number 2.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hard for me to say because big Calvin Ridley fan when he was at Alabama. I don't want to talk about the Alabama stuff today, but
Unfortunately for the Titans, right? They drafted Traylon Burks to be their number 1. That dude is worse than Will Levis,
Yeah.
right? Like never just they couldn't figure it out. When he could figure it out, he was hurt. So, I mean, Tennessee has done a poor job drafting. They've done a poor job developing their talent. I think they're going to end up moving on from Levis after this season.
what would make Tennessee better in your opinion, both of you? I mean, what do they need to be better?
A quarterback. I mean, you plug and play Kirk Cousins with all of his interceptions on this Tennessee team, and they're going to win more games than they have now. You can't blame it all on the quarterback, but you can most certainly blame a lot of it on the quarterback with the just boneheaded decisions that Will Levis has made.
But then you look at the other side of this game we're talking about. You're talking about Jacksonville, who had Trevor Lawrence for most of the year until last week or 2 weeks ago now, right? They're still struggling too, and everyone thought Trevor Lawrence was going to have a pretty good year this year as well. Is it all quarterback?
I think that might be coaching. I think Doug Peterson lost the locker room. I think that's the big issue in Jacksonville. I like Doug Peterson. I really wanted him to be good there, despite them being in the AFC South. I think he lost the locker room.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a somewhat different situation.
I mean, because the Jaguars have weapons. You talk about, ETN in the backfield. I mean, Tank Bigsby's kind of came out of nowhere and been a pretty good back. And then you talk about Evan Ingram as a tight end. He was one of the top tight ends in the league last year.
True, but they're also missing their top 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
They're both out for the season. That's going to have a very big impact on everything. And Trevor Lawrence has been inconsistent.
Very inconsistent.
But with that being said, we are about to cut to a commercial break. We will return shortly. You are listening to the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5.
This is the Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston. I am Jacob Meadows. Once again, I am joined by the Mr. Bryce Shepard, and it's been a fun show so far.
Oh, I'm having a blast.
So glad you ended up coming. It's a lot harder when it's just me talking to myself and then talking to AJ. It's nice being
Yeah.
able to bounce it off. To
I mean,
somebody
you know,
else.
you kind of threw a little shade at me earlier, but we've been talking about this for a few years about me coming on a show with you and talking a little football. And here we are 2 years later. This is probably your wedding gift to me, knowing you'll just write that in a card or
Bro,
something.
I brought you to ESPN.
That's what
this
you'll
is most
say. You'll
certainly
write
your
it in. You'll
wedding
write it in a card and say, "Hey, happy wedding, man." You know, I remember that time I put you on the show.
Remember when I brought you to the studio?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's what you'll say. Good luck to you and Sam. All the love, Jacob. That's what the card will say. Yeah.
All the love. Speaking of love, the city of brotherly love. The Panthers played the Eagles today. They went into Philadelphia and almost won. Shout out Dustin Pfeiffer, our resident Panthers expert. I hope you had a ball today. I know they lost, but the Panthers played really, really well. And had it not been for an Xavier Legette drop right at the end of the game, which looked bogus until they showed the replay, and it was most certainly a drop pass, the Panthers win that game. Philadelphia did not deserve to win. They got incredibly lucky at the end. Not like a KC lucky, but they did get lucky. And how did you feel? Because I know you, being the Alabama fan that you are, Bryce Young, very big Alabama guy.
Yeah. Just happy for Bryce Young. I think a lot of the hate early on was pretty unnecessary. You know, young guy learning the league. And let's be honest, the Panthers have little to no weapons.
No
you know,
talent.
Adam Thielen's the best wide receiver.
Who had a day today,
Who had
by
a
the
great
way.
day. Not 9 catches, 102 yards.
I hope he never retires.
Yeah,
He's-
just play forever. I think you're watching Bryce Young get comfortable, and I think this is why he was the number one overall pick. The upside in him getting comfortable in a system, and they, like you said, they went into Philadelphia, which everyone knows, super tough place to play, and they were a drop away from a game-winning drive by Bryce Young.
Yep.
You know,
in the fourth quarter, this was the perfect opportunity for Bryce Young, right? Like you have him coming in. It's another big game. He almost beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Doesn't. But on the flip side, Eagles, one of the top 2 teams in the NFC. So he comes into Philadelphia, and what does he do? He balls out the entire game. And I do think that the Panthers are going to be sitting pretty in a couple of years. I mean, they do need some more offensive weapons. Adam Thielen's like 35 years old. So like as much as I want him to play forever, he's not. And
they got a great back in Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba Hubbard is terrific.
He's been great. And I think if you would have told anybody at the beginning of the year the Panthers were going to take the Chiefs and the Eagles, you know, in a span of 3 weeks down to the wire and almost win those games, about you're crazy.
Laughed in your face.
And Bryce Young's going to play good and only turn the ball over once in those games.
Right. That's crazy.
There's something brewing in Carolina, I would think. And they're not in a very strong division. So I would say moving forward, they probably have a chance to make
They have a shot at the division next year. I do feel bad. So Jonathan Brooks, the running back out of the University of Texas, he finally gets off of IR. He's worked his way back to the active roster. He did get hurt today, waiting to kind of see what ends up shaking out of that. I do hate that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a great addition to this team if he and Chuba can figure it out, because Chuba signed a contract. Like, he's going to be there. If Brooks and Chuba can end up going 1-2 with that, like, Carolina could have a really good 1-2 punch at running back. Xavier Legette is a great wide receiver. He's a rookie. It was a rookie drop. Like, you can only blame him so much. This was never a year that anybody thought Carolina was going to go to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, this season has been all about development, and they have shown a lot of promise.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I didn't think going into today the score would be 22-16 with a drop in the end zone deciding the football game pretty much. They're on the road against the best team.
Yep,
one of the best
teams
in the NFC, right? And I was just pretty impressed. I'm pretty impressed with the Panthers. Like you said, Alabama guy Bryce Young is starting to look like the number one overall.
He's looking like the Bryce Young that everybody saw.
Yeah,
at Alabama.
He's making good decisions. He looks a lot more comfortable. He looks like he's in control of what's going on.
On the flip side of this, I wonder, is it time to panic for the Eagles a little bit? Like, after watching this game, are you, AJ, as the Cowboys fan, right? They're same division. You watch it more than either of us would. The Eagles have not been great, right? Like, they do what they do. Saquon Barkley also, I want him to win the MVP, but that defense allows a little too much. And do you still think that the Eagles are one of the teams to beat, or do you think that we're going to see maybe not the precipitous fall off that we got last season where they collapsed, but do you think that the Eagles might start falling apart here at the back end?
I think they won like 8 games in a row. I think it's just like fatigue, maybe not fatigue, but maybe it's just getting boring. Like they were to just get to the playoffs probably, because I think that they are way better than they were last year, and that was just a couple of things that still went unexplained. But they're a way different team than that. And you're seeing Vic Fangio defensively being able to get most players together. I mean, this week I think they just underestimated Carolina, but the offense with Kellen Moore, which I'm surprised, because Kellen Moore used to just throw the ball a lot, used to stray away from the run game in Dallas, but he's really embraced Saquon Barkley, and that's why we're seeing him have a MVP type year. So I think that they're going to be good. I think that the Lions, and obviously the Packers, those are the three in the NFC that should be favored to potentially represent the NFC.
Yeah, I would 1000% agree with everything you just said. I think it was a lack of the Eagles kind of getting up for this game. You've like you said, you've rattled off 9 wins in a row, and here come the Panthers. And I think sometimes teams, especially that are as good as the Eagles, think, we could play a C game today and probably still get a win. I mean, they threw the ball for 108 yards today.
It's fair. And I mean, especially with the head-to-head dub against the Commanders, I guess they really aren't worried about relinquishing the title in the division. So, I mean, it would make sense. I mean,
but there is something to play for. They're playing for a bye. I think that should be a reason to kind of get excited for a game like this. But I mean, I don't think it's panic time.
I mean, they did win. Yeah. So at the end of the day, kind of like what you said with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, a good team wins, and they did win. So speaking of another team that won, right? How about that Miami game today? They looked dead to the wolves for a lot of this game. Somehow strike back in the second half. The Jets are the Jets. So I had the opportunity to go to a Jets game last year. I went to the Jets v Miami game at the Hard Rock Stadium last season. For the entire game, the entire crowd, and I mean entire crowd, chanted JETS, suck, suck, suck. And like, this was a huge dose of that once more. Aaron Rodgers does not look like the MVP Aaron Rodgers. Davante Adams does not look like the MVP Davante Adams. And this Jets team is not good.
No, they're not. That's the simple thing to say. And I think it falls. Look, Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, is the greatest thrower of the football ever. And what I mean by that is when he throws the ball, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen him not throw a spiral. The ball's always on the money.
It's beautiful.
I just think there's a leadership side to Aaron Rodgers that we don't see a lot, I guess.
He has a huge ego. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think he's so good and so great. And then I think the issue the Jets are having now is everyone's looking at every single thing that they're doing, and you bring in Davante Adams for Aaron Rodgers, and you're still losing. And you're in a game. By the way, Tua he may be the second best, most beautiful thrower of a football I've ever seen. The ball is beautiful. It's on the money. The throw in overtime to win it
he can throw dots.
Was amazing. It just led him perfectly to the sideline for the win. And then they had a big drive to go kick the field goal to tie it too. So I think the Dolphins are a team when they're all healthy, and I think everyone's hoping Tua stays healthy. It's just you've been watching him and he's so great, and then something happens and he gets hurt. But the Dolphins are really good when they're all healthy. And Tyreek Hill's getting healthy too.
Hey, you know what? So my roommate's the biggest Miami fan I've ever met, right? Like die hard his whole life. He's been miserable his entire life, right? Like the Dolphins have never won anything of note in his lifetime. And he thinks in the back of his mind, this whole thing where Tyreek Hill ligaments torn in his wrist, this, that, and the other, he thinks it was just an excuse for a bad season. Tua's finally getting hot, and Ty Hill's finally getting targeted, and he looks good, right? Yeah. Doesn't look hurt. And it's one of those things where I think it was more of like a confidence thing, like the confidence around the morale with the Miami Dolphins got low. Tua goes out. They do have the worst quarterback room in the league behind Tua. It's a bunch of guys that shouldn't even be in the league unless they were on scout teams. And they could have gone for a high draft pick. Now Miami looks like they're driving to try and get a wild card position. Yeah. And this is a team that you might not want to play. Their defense has been pretty good this year.
As long as it's warm weather. You wouldn't want to play them.
You don't want to play.
Like, if they got to go on the road and it's below 40 degrees, you're feeling pretty good.
They went to Kansas City last year. It was -30, and it was a terrible game.
Yeah.
But if the conditions are just right, I mean, Miami is a good team.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they got a good quarterback. Seems like a pretty good leader. Seems like the guys like him. And like you said, the targets that are happening, it was 14 for Tyreek today and 12 for Waddle, and 10 catches for Tyreek and 9 for Waddle.
They killed it. And like Tua throws dots all over the field, and he's supplemented by a terrific run game.
Yeah.
Devon Achane, they have that running back right who kept getting balls he kept getting thrown to out of the backfield, and he's a good runner.
Yeah, he is. Great runner. But we're talking so much about the Dolphins offense. What happened to the Jets defense? I think coming into the year, everybody was like, "Oh, this is going to be one of the best defenses in the league. 2 shutdown corners, linebackers are good. You know, the D line's solid. Well, they're giving up points."
Yeah.
It changed when you fired Robert Saleh, honestly, and then you had the defensive coordinator have to take responsibility for the offense, for offense and defense. So,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of it.
Bob Salah was brought in for a reason. And when they fired him for the mishaps with the offense, it blows my mind because Salah was a defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, and it was never his fault. Ulbrich steps into his position, and you're getting a whole lot of the same a lot of the same reason.
Yeah. Do you think they wanted Saleh to be like Dan Campbell? Do you think that's kind of what they were going for with that hire? Is, you know, they would be a similar type teams where they're just tough and gritty, and you wanted that, but they just didn't get it in New York.
I guess so. I mean, they came in the same year as head coaches in
Yeah.
2021, but I mean, it's just different situations. I don't know. The Jets, they're just a bad organization too, though.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
true.
like they're kind of cursed too.
Yeah, those teams in New York are having a tough time.
It's going to be, I feel bad for the fans in New York.
Yes.
But we will get right back to this. We are going to have to go to a commercial break. You are listening to the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the second hour. I am not Mean Gene, but we are running the Mean Gene Show. You are joined by the Mr. Bryce Shepard, one of my slightly knowledgeable NFL fans. And this has been a cool show. And this is my favorite segment of the Mean Gene Show every week. This is the What Had Happened Was. And we are going.
What had happened was.
What had happened was.
What had happened was.
What had happened is the 49ers absolutely beat the dog mess out of the Chicago Bears today. It was a terrible game for Chicago. At the end of the first half, San Francisco had 319 yards of offense. Chicago had 4. So this was a game where only one team ever showed up. The fact that Chicago scored points blows my mind because San Francisco dog walked them. Did you watch that game, Bryce?
I did. This was not a nap game for me. I was awake and I watched it. One, where has the San Francisco team been, for the last few weeks? I think this is
They weren't playing Chicago.
That's true. They didn't play Chicago the last 4 weeks. I guess you're right. It's hard for me to talk about Chicago because there's not a lot of good things to say. I think we all watched the Thanksgiving Day game and what happened there, and then you fire the coach, and then it's tough. It's tough to see, really how good Caleb Williams is. I don't think he's bad. I think he's shown signs of
some promise,
promise more than some number one picks have in the past in their first year. But the problem I think is for Chicago is they're just not a well coached team. I don't think they're just not really ever put in positions to win. And I think it's, you always hear like good coaches and stuff talk about teams that look like they expect to lose. That's what the Bears look like to me in the second half of football games.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I mean, as easy as it is to hate Caleb Williams, right? Like coming out of college, like he ran his mouth a lot. Nobody's ever tweeted their punter on the team that they're coming to, like, "Hey, you're not going to need to do your job."
You got to like a little bit of that confidence.
You got to like confidence, but there's a level to it where you need.
I mean, maybe would you have been as bothered if he would have won a natty in college and been acting that way?
No,
so
not at
it's
all.
just because he really didn't win much in college.
Either. No, I mean he won in college. The only games that he didn't win
were the big ones.
But his defense didn't exist in college. Like he played great in college. Even the games that they lost, even the big games, very few of them they actually lost because of Caleb Williams. I just think that you're going to the next level. There's a level of professionalism that you should carry with you because you have no idea what you're walking into. This is a young man that was given the greatest offense a rookie quarterback has ever had. And the level of confidence he had coming into the league, like, albeit it could have been a good thing, it has slapped him in the face. And it's gotten to the point of the season where even Caleb Williams looks tired on the sideline at halftime because he is just getting punched into the ground by every team he plays, the 49ers being no exception.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hard to really talk about the Bears, and like you said, what had happened was they just really got beat today. What did they have 4 yards of offense in the first half?
It was bad.
I mean, we're talking about an NFL football team.
It might have been Penn State, right? Yeah. It might as well have just been Penn State.
Yeah. And I think it's just tough. But he did throw for 2 touchdowns today. They did score in the second half, and he played okay. But I just don't. The defense is almost non-existent there. Every time they need to stop, they don't get a stop. That they had, a few weeks there where they almost beat the Packers. They almost beat the Lions.
Yeah.
And then you lose those games in the most heartbreaking ways possible. They haven't beat the Packers in however many tries. It's been like, the last
dozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get the field goal blocked. And then the time management situation against the Lions on Thanksgiving. Those are back-to-back.
It was bad. Yeah.
Games. How do you kind of bounce back from that? You could almost kind of see a game like this coming today.
So there was a time in recent Bears history that this feels very reminiscent of, and that was when Mitchell Trubisky was reached for, and you had Maserati Mitch running this offense, and you had the defense that was led by Khalil Mack, right? So they had an all-world defense again. Chicago's defense was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, and then they missed some kicks.
Well, yeah, but you have Maserati Mitch throwing this ball wherever he wants to around the field, right? But just never to his own players. And you have a Khalil Mack-led defense that was really, really good that gave up on the team halfway through the season right before they got rid of Mitchell Trubisky because the offense couldn't sustain drives. And this is a Chicago Bears team that feels very similar to that to me because they have a decent defense. They really do. You can't tell, but they do. Like Jack Jones is a great corner. They have pieces on this defense that are very good at football. It's just one of those things where
they're not used to winning.
Yeah, they don't win, and you can only have hope for so long.
Like winning is contagious.
Yeah, and the coach gets fired, like you said, and it's just kind of like, okay, so this year's doomed on to next year, and they're playing as if they're just waiting for the season to end.
Yeah, because I think we can all see a little bit of potential with the Bears, right?
Sure.
I think taking Caleb Williams was the right pick. I think, coming out of the draft, he probably was.
Probably. Maybe.
Besides Jaden Daniels. I think it's close when you talk about that. Drake May hasn't been playing bad.
Drake May's not bad either, yeah.
But
he has all the talent.
He has the most upside.
Caleb Williams showed in college he has all of the talent. He can make any throw from anywhere on the field. He can throw a dime across his body 30 yards downfield and hit his guy in stride. Like, it is something that he's capable of doing. The Bears have I really do think that this is just a team that is ready for the season to end because it's been nothing but tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think games like this happen when you think the season's over.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were playing for much. The 49ers, on the other hand, are playing for a little bit right now. I think they've really underachieved from what everybody kind of thought. They've been battling some injuries and things. But still, even when people get hurt, good teams still win.
Exactly. And with that being said, the 49ers have not won much lately, which sucks because I like Kyle Shanahan. I like this 49ers team. How about Isaac Guerendo? Dude, they announced it during the game today. This is his second start since the beginning of college. He was not a starter in college. The game that he ended up starting in earlier this season, he played very well. He had a day today.
Yeah, 78 yards on the ground, 50 receiving, 2 touchdowns.
Good job, Kyle Shanahan.
So right now we're basically saying if you look at a 49ers running back, AJ, I want to get your opinion on this. And because, we talked a little bit about your team, the Cowboys, and needing a running back. Do you even look at someone for the 49ers and just say one of those guys is pretty good, or you just think it's the system in San Francisco? Because they plug in guys you haven't heard of ever, and they go run for 100 and something yards, catch it for 75, and just hang out in the end zone.
Right, yeah, the system definitely makes a difference because you saw Jordan Mason go off in the time without Christian McCaffrey for the most part, besides when he got injured some. But, I mean, with McCaffrey, I wouldn't say necessarily with him. I think the system helps him, but obviously he's a talented running back, and last year was the best running back in the league, so it varies. But Kyle Shanahan, I mean, he's an innovative offensive mind, so he knows how to put his running backs in great situations to be successful.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. And I think with are the 49ers more dangerous when McCaffrey's not on the field because you don't have to key in on McCaffrey and they're not stopping the run and putting people in the box to stop him? They got the ball to everybody today.
I think they're more lethal with McCaffrey not in the game than when he's not at 100% health.
Agreed.
I think that's when Christian McCaffrey was healthy and he was firing on all cylinders. He was a top 3 player in the NFL at any position. He can run, he can catch, and he can pass, right? Like Boobie Miles, right? Like CMC is a terrific running back.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's just because he was injured this year. That's the thing that really just mounted them, and that's why they haven't looked as good. Because, I mean, if McCaffrey was healthy the whole year, like people thought he was going to be, the 49ers probably would have still been one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
That you have to look at it like Brandon Ayuk also, he gets the bag, goes down. ACL's gone, right? So I know you have Juwan Jennings, you have Debo, who I don't think that they still realize that they have Debo on the roster.
Yeah, I think
but
he's forgotten for some reason right now.
Yeah.
He's still super exciting to watch.
You have Juwan Jennings, you have Ricky Pearsall, who, again, had he not been shot, like, he had a lot of upside too. Like, San Francisco has just been mired in just the craziest circumstances this season, and I think that's got a big part.
Yeah, I mean they're a team I think that could win the West.
I mean,
still a chance.
Yeah, there's a big chance.
The Rams had a really good day today, though.
They did. They had a fantastic.
I know we're going to get to that a little bit later. That's a pretty big win. Probably the biggest win of the day so far.
Yeah, I mean, it was the most exciting shootout of a game so far today for sure. And I did not expect it to go the way that it did.
Yeah.
So, yes.
But I think the 49ers, they could be another team that sneaks in a playoff spot and maybe steals a game from somebody if I think they could. They just got the weapons everywhere. They went to Kittle 6 times a day for 151 yards.
He looked amazing, by the way. George Kittle caught everything thrown at him just about. And, like, He is the most violent running tight end we may have ever seen in our lifetime that we may have ever seen. I know Gronk was good.
Yeah, I was about to say AJ. Did he just forget that Gronk is
Gronk
alive?
didn't run with the same
NFL?
kind of angry aggression that George Kittle.
I
does.
mean, I wouldn't want to hit either one of them if I was playing. I don't that's not for me. I don't want to line up with any of those guys. I'd rather have Kittle run at me. I don't know. Neither one. Neither one. There'd be a Bryce outline in the field with him just running me over. To be honest,
it would be close. I don't know. Kittle's he looks like somebody that like breaks center blocks with his face when he's sitting at the house and he gets bored.
Yeah,
like, he's a psychopath, man.
Well, he and Gronk both are. I think that's what makes him so special.
I guess that
watch,
is
right?
fair.
It's like,
yeah,
and they're easy guys to cheer for. Kittle's got the hair. Gronk just had. He was Gronk. That's really how you describe Gronk.
That's the best. Yeah. But. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and go to a commercial break. You are listening to the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.
This is the Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back. This is the Mean Gene Show with me, your host today, Jacob Meadows of the Coach's Quarters, joined by the Bryce Shepard. And we are rolling up to, we're just, the show's, it's not almost over, but it's almost over.
Yeah.
We're almost done. We're almost halfway through the second half. And this has been a good show. I miss Gene a lot, but it is always a pleasure and an honor to be able to run his show while he is away. And thoughts and prayers to you, Mr. Gene.
Yeah, just big thanks to Gene for letting me come on here today too. Hope I could come back at some point. Hope I get an invite. Would love to sit in the middle and just talk some football with you guys any day of the week.
I think that might be a pretty easy conversation to have. Gene's a pretty easygoing guy. But all right, so we actually have, these are going to be some good games that we're talking about this segment, right? We have the Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. Good game, but it wasn't the game that it could have been, right? Seattle kind of blew the doors off Arizona. Arizona opened this game up beautifully. Hits Michael Wilson to the 41-yard tutter right there in the very beginning of the game. It looks like Arizona is going to be firing on all cylinders. Geno doesn't look great right off the jump. And then everything fell apart.
Yeah.
They didn't even get out of the first quarter.
Yeah, the turnovers start happening, and it's just so weird to me, watching the Cardinals because I watch Kyler Murray, and you just think this guy could do anything on any given play, and then he does it, and then the very next drive he does something, and you just kind of sit there and think, what were we kind of thinking
What
there?
it looked like he threw that touchdown pass. That first drive was beautiful. And then it's like he was like, yeah, we've got this game won. And then they disappeared. He threw 2 back-to-back picks after that. And it's like you do realize like there's a whole game still in front of you. It doesn't help that their run game didn't get going very quickly. And I don't know, dude. I mean, Arizona still needs some pieces. Kyler Murray has played better. Like he's had a good year. They are right there. They could still win the division. It's a very competitive division, but with like San Francisco taking a step back for all the reasons that we've already pointed out, Arizona still has that chance. This was not a game that helped them win this division. But I mean, I don't know. Seattle, I think Seattle's better than I've given them credit for all year.
Yeah,
I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I think they're kind of one of those sleeper teams. Like you're not gonna watch them. In the middle of the day, you're not gonna be like, I need to watch the Seahawks game. But they're winning football games, and they're 8-5, really controlling their own destiny at this point. The Cardinals to me are just really confusing. Like I thought Marvin Harrison would have a little bit more of an impact. Than he's had so far. But he had 8 targets today, 4 catches. But I mean, I just thought he'd be a little bit more involved in the game plan, I guess. And I thought he would make a little bit more of a splash, maybe more of a deep threat, a guy that could make a guy miss on a quick throw and have more explosive plays.
I think he was, right? Like my opinion on it is that I think everybody thinks that coming in. So Marvin Harrison just gets immediately taken out. Like that guy is watched by every team because the only other big target that they have is Michael Wilson, who scored the first touchdown of the game. Like they are void of talent.
He's already being treated like a number 1.
Correct. And everybody can cue on him. And if you can stop James Conner and DeMarcado, the running backs there, you can stop this Arizona offense. I mean, Kyler does give it that extra oomph, right? Because he can run and he can pass, and he's very good at both. But it takes a very creative game design for this Arizona offense to come into any stadium and really put up a consistent game-winning performance because there's not very many angles they can take. They're not one-dimensional, but they are pretty close.
Yeah, and I mean, you may know a little bit more about the Cardinals than I do. I mean, defensively, are they? I mean,
they have holes. I mean, this isn't the Patrick Peterson Cardinals, right? Yeah. Like they have young talent. Like they're not bad. They're just not good. They allowed a lot of points last year. They did bring in some guys in the offseason and the draft, and like they've gotten better. But this is another team. Like very few people outside of Arizona really thought that these weren't Super Bowl contenders. Right. They're like, Kyler's coming back. And then you have all the jokes. It's like they launched another Call of Duty this year. They're like, oh, Kyler's going to suck, which he did dispel that. He got like part of it. He was some part of the Call of Duty
he was
debut and whatnot. Yeah. But like he's gotten through that.
I'm not going to hate on an NFL quarterback for having hobbies outside of football. No, if he wants to play Call of Duty till 4 a.m, if you show up and throw touchdown passes, you can do it.
He wasn't doing it. That was why he was getting hate.
I know, but still, I mean, people have hobbies.
But he's done well this season. Like this really, since Cliff Kingsbury, like he's done really well this year.
Yeah.
It's just
he's been improved this year.
This is a team that should be much better next season, and I think that they've done rather well with the resources at their disposal. Their defense does need help. I mean, Seattle hung 30 on them today, and I do know that they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Yeah. Zach Charbonnet was the difference today.
And with big run today.
Kenneth Walker out, the run game should have been stoppable. And it was not. Zach Charbonnet had, I'm pretty sure this was the best game of his season.
Yeah. Because when we're looking at it here, it was 17-10 at the time. The Cardinals just kicked a field goal to make it a 7-point game, and then he broke the 51-yard touchdown run.
And it was beautiful because he broke tackles.
He broke tackles. It wasn't like he was untouched. He ran through the middle of the field, broke tackles, and scored.
Reminiscent of the Marshawn Lynch days.
There's no run that ever compares to that, by the way. That 51-yard run that's a nap run compared to what Marshawn Lynch did. But it was a nice. It was
a good run.
It's a good run, and it's a big moment of the game. And like we said, this is the NFL. You're giving up a 51-yard touchdown run to make it a 2-score game again. That's tough to kind of swallow.
Yes, and I don't know. Arizona looked good to start. I don't think that they schemed well for Seattle.
Yeah.
I think that Seattle came in because this was the second matchup of the year, if I'm not mistaken, between Seattle and Arizona. And I don't think it's like they didn't learn anything from the first game. Like they thought that they could come in, do the same thing, and everything would be the same. And that wasn't the case. And that falls on coaching. They have a young coach, right? So I just think it's one of those things. This was a growth opportunity, and that is what it was.
I mean, the Cardinals are still young, right? And they
Yes.
brought, like you said, they brought in some good pieces, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. eventually will be the breakout guy. Everything we watched at Ohio State was absolutely ridiculous.
He's the best player on that team. You just don't know it yet.
You just don't know it yet, right? It's one of those things you're going to have to find out. But on the other side, Seahawks 8-5, kind of sneaky, good, slide into the playoffs.
They won a division game without their starting running back. Kenneth Walker's a damn good player.
Yeah,
So-
we just get me to the dance. I just want to be a part of the dance.
And I think Seattle could make ripples in
Yeah.
the playoffs. I really do. Like if they end up winning, it's not a team that I want to draw. There are going to be harder places to play.
Yeah.
But I mean, Geno Smith's still good at quarterback, right? Geno Smith can lead an offense. That defense is playing really, really well. So Seattle's a good team. There's a reason they have a winning record. They have the best record in their division. That division is a very competitive division, and Seattle has a good in-division record for a reason.
Yeah.
So
what's the goal every time you go out there? Win games.
win games.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They've dropped a couple that they probably should have won, but they are winning games. And that's what this was this week.
Absolutely.
So on the flip side of that, we have the Bills and Rams, another team from the same division as the Seahawks. And this was an incredible game. If you like offensive football, this was the best game of the week by far. The Bills lost 44-42 to the LA Rams, something that I did not expect to happen coming into this game. And yeah, I'm going to give this over to you. How did you like this? Was this a good game?
This was the best game on, today. I think I'm an offensive football fan. I think sometimes there's a time and place for defensive football games. I think it's great. I like when the defenses step up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But I like to watch people run around and score touchdowns too. That kind of makes the game exciting. It's kind of like baseball. Everybody likes the bunt in the ninth inning to get the guy from first to second.
It's true.
But we like the home runs too.
Yeah.
Would you rather see a bunt or would you see the home run?
The home run for sure.
Right.
It's a good,
Don't get me wrong. Diving plays are exciting too. Defense is great.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for me with the Bills are good.
They're a good team.
But the Rams needed to win today to keep some pressure on Seattle.
yes.
And I've always been a big Matthew Stafford fan. I just
Whole
think,
career.
it's easy to cheer for the guy.
Mhm.
And he showed up today, 320, 2 touchdowns. And it's a big win for the Rams. And this is what bothers me about the Bills. You want to be like the Bills are.
They're the best.
They're the best.
And then they do stuff like
And
they
then
go
they
out
do
beat
this.
Kansas City,
Yeah.
and then they can fall by 2 points to a Rams team that's barely over 500.
Yeah. And,
Yes.
and then you're like, well, Josh Allen still did what he does every single week. And he's so exciting to watch. Congrats on his engagement, by the way. I think we've all seen it on social media. So congrats to Josh.
W.
But
Great
I
job.
said W.
W. Hey, good for him.
Good
you
for
know?
him.
Hey, as someone who recently got engaged as well, it's an exciting time.
You
So
too,
good,
W
good
for
for
you too.
Josh. It's a big deal. But yeah, I think Josh Allen is just he's an easy guy to cheer for. Hard, plays the game the right way, plays the game hard. But you can't lose games like this when you're the Bills.
It's hard. Sean McVay, still one of the best coaches in the league.
Yeah.
And like you said, Matt Stafford's a great quarterback. And the Rams wanted it more today.
Yeah.
They put pressure on the Bills in all the right ways, right? James Cook had a hard time getting things going. And then you have things like, the Bills trade for Amari Cooper. Me and so many other people probably expected Amari Cooper to be an instant plug and play. Like he was good in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson could hit him with passes and he was a difference maker in games. He comes to the Bills. You're like, they lack a true number one receiver. Amari Cooper, just bang, bang, bang. It's going to be great. And it hasn't been the case. You have Mac Hollins dropping balls in the end zone. And you have Josh Allen, who, albeit played a pretty good game, missed a lot of throws that he probably shouldn't have, especially in the first half. And that led to the Rams being able to stay in this.
Yeah. And then you look at, we're looking right here. We're looking at rushing,
Mhm.
right? And when your quarterback has 82 rushing yards and your running back has 20,
Yeah.
and a receiver has 1,
There's an
it's
issue.
it's hard to win that way because then you're just keying in on the pass. I think that's what happens with the Bills sometimes. But another thing about this game, there was like that dull part of the year for the Rams where Cooper Cup was hurt, Nakua was hurt, and everyone was like, the Rams, it's gonna be tough. They're just not that good. These guys are back.
They're
now,
getting healthy.
and you see what the offense can be when those guys are back, and they're exciting to watch too. Shifty guys. They're not the biggest guys, but they just get open. And you can tell Matthew Stafford gets really comfortable when those two guys are in the game.
Absolutely. And then when you had Matthew Stafford has always elevated the play of the receivers that play for him.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite plays of this game today, there was a deep bomb to Demarcus Robinson, who shout out to him for not being in jail. But Demarcus Robinson had a good game. He catches a ball. He has a pass interference called against him, right? Pass interference, not against him, but a pass interference called against the defender behind him. Demarcus Robinson catches an absolute dime from Matthew Stafford right in front of the end zone, and there was no reason he even should have caught it. And it was beautiful, and it was just indicative of the entire game for the Rams. They are able to make anything out of nothing, or very little at least. And I like DeMarcus Robinson, who's good for the Chiefs. He's been great his entire NFL career.
Yeah.
But I mean, they look good. The Rams just look good at all three phases the entire game, and that I do believe is what ended up winning them this game 44-42.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like we said, I think the Rams are healthy now. I would probably say the Rams win the division over the Seahawks.
I think it's definitely possible. And I think if they're able to make a wild card somehow, they're going to be a team very similar to the Packers, right? Where
you just don't want to see them.
Yeah, you don't want to play them because they are very good. They're very good at everything they do. And Sean McVay is a top 5 head coach in the NFL.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So, all right. With that being said, we're going to shut this one down. We are going to go to a commercial break. You are listening to the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.
This is the Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. What is up? If you have not tuned in prior to now, I am not Mean Gene. I look similar, but I am not the same person. I am Jacob Meadows with the Coach's Quarters, joined today by Bryce Shepard, my in-house specialist of all things NFL. You having fun today, dude?
Oh, I'm having a blast. I just keep waiting for more backhanded compliments whenever you start the segment. So, but there's been a few. There haven't been as many as I thought, though.
I got to be a little nice. I do want you to end up wanting to come back. But I'll tell you, AJ's smiling so much behind the glass today. It's been a good day.
Good.
For sure.
Well, I definitely want to come back. You guys have made the sale. You can just stop selling. All right. You've made the sale. I want to come back. You can stop selling, though. All right. Stop selling.
This is going to be, we are semi-winded down, right? There's only 2 more segments left of this show. There's been a game going on for the past, 25-ish minutes.
Yeah.
It is the Chiefs versus the Chargers. Unfortunately for us, we had it on the wrong channel initially, so we couldn't comment on what was going on.
You were
in the
just
game.
trying to catch up on the Simpsons.
Yeah, I was trying to catch up on the Simpsons. Apparently, that's what was planned for us. We have finally moved it over. The Chiefs are beating the Chargers right now, 6-0. It does look like Herbie and the Chargers offense are having a big issue against this, what looks like incredibly elite Chiefs defense right now. Herbert is actually, he's hurt at the moment.
Yeah.
So we will most certainly see what comes of that. Does look like there was a flag on the play. I don't know if that was an unnecessary roughness on the defense or what yet. But does look like Taylor Heineke, somebody who's played good ball in his past. He's
not a bad guy to have coming in. He has experience. But this Chiefs defense, dude, I don't know.
It's nuts.
The 1 year where they had an average defense, we're talking about maybe where we don't have the Chiefs in the playoffs, and I think, for 90% of us, I think that'd be a win. Sorry to all the Chiefs fans out there that are listening, but you've had it pretty good for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, defense is solid. Spagnuolo does a great job.
Spags is a good DC.
It's hard to, like you said, sometimes we all know defense wins championships. I told you I like to watch people score. That's just the fun part of football.
Mm-hmm.
But watching good defenses like theirs is pretty fun too.
I just, it's crazy how the stars have aligned for the Chiefs. And if you've listened to the show any of the weeks prior to this one, you've heard Gene and I kind of boil the Chiefs down where, Patrick Mahomes is having his worst statistical year of his NFL career. They have no wide receivers, traded for DeAndre Hopkins at the break. Hollywood Brown's not back yet. And they're getting very little offensive output out of their receiving core. Isaiah Pacheco breaks his fibula, right? Not something most people come back from in season. He is back.
Did you have any doubt he'd be back, though? That guy runs so crazy, so crazy hard. I mean, he'd be back.
He runs hard like Jamal Williams ran at the beginning of his NFL career. And I love it. It's hard to cheer against Isaiah Pacheco for it, especially with his story and what have you. He's a good dude. And
Rutgers, right? Rutgers? Is that a Rutgers?
I think
right?
so.
I think, yeah.
But they just, I don't want them to three-peat. Call me a hater, right? Like I'm gonna hate a little bit on the Chiefs. Like they are in the AFC. My whole career, I've spent my life cheering for the Texans, and we stood in Tom Brady's shadow. And it's like, you know what? Tom Brady's gone, goes to Tampa Bay. Like it's finally.
Yeah,
our chance.
Share the love of the Super Bowls. There's a lot of fan bases out there, and we have AJ here, who is a Cowboys fan, and he hasn't even seen them win. More than 2 playoff games, I think. And, Chiefs are out here going for a three-peat.
Yeah.
And we got AJ behind the glass just wishing and hoping to win a playoff game, and maybe even get to the playoffs this year with the Cowboys.
But I want them to get Ashton Gency. They only make playoffs this year.
You get so much of this from me and Gene. I'm so sorry. AJ.
I get it from a lot of people. I'm just used to it.
But in all reality, it's crazy, but the Chiefs look like a team that could do exactly what they've done 2 years prior and win a Super Bowl, because really all it takes is for it to click on offense.
That's correct. They just play good ball. Like no matter what you do, you can plug and play anybody you want onto offense, defense, special teams. It doesn't matter. They just play good ball, and
they're a team that doesn't know how to lose.
Andy Reid is a spectacular first ballot Hall of Fame coach, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he has made this team gel in a way that it doesn't matter if you have chemistry with the team. Anybody who comes into that office, into that building, there's immediate, they buy into what they're doing because you know it works.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, I mean, like you said, they don't know how to lose.
They actually don't know how to lose.
You coming off the streets, any other team, right? You know how to lose. It doesn't matter where you play. You know what losing is like. And you walk into this Chiefs organization, it's like, oh, like you guys, like it might as well be a cult. Oh, you guys do this works.
Yeah.
And so it works. They
And
they immediately buy in.
I think it's also, it's easy to not know how to lose when you do know, no matter what time of the game it is, Patrick Mahomes can do something at any moment. He deserves that credit.
He
right?
can do that. Yes.
I thought Xavier Worthy, you and I talked about this before the season.
Yep.
I thought he would be almost the next Tyreek Hill.
Mhm.
And we just haven't seen that. I think we've seen him do some things like it was a
His
Monday night
end
game a
arounds.
few weeks back. It was wide open. He didn't know where he was on the field.
And he
Caught the ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
But he's a rookie.
It's a
He's young.
development thing. Yeah, he's still young. I bet next year. I bet next year he is the next Tyreek Hill because they're the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, and he could outrun anyone on the field, the fastest 40 time
Ever.
Plus,
You have Hollywood Brown coming back.
Yeah.
Another small, fast guy just like Xavier.
Yeah, and then
Worthy.
you have the veteran DeAndre Hopkins there to help these guys with whatever they're going through.
And he's been playing good ball for them. He was invisible on the Titans because of the mayonnaise menace, Will Levis. And he looks like he's dialed the clock back a little bit with the Chiefs, which honestly I hate, but I also love. Since he was with Houston, he was
love
so
to
good
see
for us.
D-Hop do
You
good,
love
right?
to see
Yeah.
D-Hop do well. He deserves a ring.
Like I said, not a Texans fan, but he's an easy guy to cheer for.
Yeah. But speaking of easy guys to cheer for, we do have one more game to talk about tonight, right? This one's still going. We'll hit on it next segment. But how about the Monday night football game? This is one you've been chirping at AJ for all night. You have the Bengals at the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be a good game. My fantasy league that I am in with Gene is banking on the Bengals being a better team, and that, Joe Burr is out there just throwing tutties all night because I need it. But this is a battle of two teams that most certainly are not going to go deep in the playoffs, and that's no shade at you, AJ. Dallas is having a bad year. The Cincinnati Bengals have had one of the greatest stretches of quarterback play ever, and they still find a way to lose every game. So, in terms of pure implication, right, it's a lose-lose for whoever wins, because whoever wins is just costing themselves that tick on the draft counter.
Yeah.
So,
I've had my thoughts on this one tonight, and AJ knows them. But I'm gonna switch it up a little bit because he's been so nice to me. Letting me come in on the show.
He's a nice guy.
Taking care of me. Kind of told me everything that to expect and what to do. I'm gonna pick Dallas tomorrow.
Really?
I think there's a chance they get it done at home. And I think it's also because, like you said, it's a lose-lose if you win. So Dallas will win this one, and they'll
they've done that before.
Yeah, they
lose
have.
or win for no reason.
And I know you want, GNT, and I think he would be great in the league, tough runner. I don't think he'll be available when the Cowboys pick, but I'm going with Dallas tomorrow. I just feel like Cincinnati's a team that's found a way to lose.
You're not wrong.
And it sucks for Joe Burrow because he's having probably would be MVP
caliber
conversation if the team wasn't, what are they, 4-8?
Yeah.
4-8 right now. But yeah, I'm going with Dallas. I'm going with Dallas for you, AJ. I'm gonna pick it right here on the show, and I'm not gonna change it. I promise.
That's cool. I mean, either way, I'd rather them lose, but even they could still get Genty theoretically, because if they miss the playoffs, he's a generational running back too, because you saw with John Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs get picked early too, so there's that factor too. But if they really want a running back that bad, they can trade up for him too. So that's my thing with that. But
that's true.
Yeah, I want them to win in ways because obviously I get tired of people, all the memes talking trash and stuff and all that. I just learned to ignore them, because after the Green Bay game last year, I went off on some people. I was just like,
what game are you talking about?
Huh? I'm just saying in general,
what Green Bay game?
Oh my gosh. Anyways, but yeah, you just became a fan of them like a year and a half ago, like you said. So, anyways,
shout out to the fiance at home.
Exactly.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, for the Cowboys, I want them to win in that way, but I want them to lose because I want them to get better draft positioning. So, it is what it is. I just hope it's a good game, though. Honestly,
I want it to be competitive.
Yeah.
I like Cooper Rush. I really do. He's no Dak Prescott, and that's saying a lot because Dak did not look good this year before he got hurt. But I mean, Cooper Rush is a serviceable backup, and he could give that Cincinnati defense fits, I think, a lot better than a lot of people are going to give him credit for.
Right. He did a couple of years ago actually because I think the Dallas played them like in week 3 or something like that. That's when Dak had that hand injury, and the Cowboys defense dominated that game and they won. So
He was part of the reason I thought the Trey Lance acquisition was a bit suspect.
Right.
Because, I mean, Cooper Rush is a good backup quarterback. He's not a star, right? Like, he is not that all-generation starting quarterback, but also it's hard to find those. It's not like you can just go to your local Sam's Club and be like, that guy, right? Like, that's not how it works.
Maybe this is a question for AJ. Is Trey Lance just not that good? I mean,
Uh,
why would he not get a shot? I mean, is he, because you know that the team, they're looking at him, they're watching him practice. At some point, you would think, hey, we brought this young guy in, let's give him a chance to go out there and rip it a little bit. And is he just not proving it?
You would especially think that because Jerry traded a 4th-round pick for him last year, but I don't know what it is because in interviews, Jerry Jones, I mean, he's been asked about that, and he just essentially said that we think Cooper Rush gives us the best chance to win. So they're still trying to win. So that makes it seem like as if they don't think putting him in it would lead to success essentially. But I mean, I don't know if y'all saw that preseason game though. He threw 5 interceptions,
Yeah.
so I guess that's kind of why.
If the Cowboys win tomorrow, you're going to think there's a playoff chance?
I mean, there could be. I know they play against the Eagles and the Commanders again, but I mean, they beat the Commanders once. No one saw that coming, really.
Yeah,
So,
True.
I mean, if they went 9-8, 10-7, maybe it depends because the NFC has been super competitive, and like those other teams I talked about as potential wild cards, like the Rams,
I think
the
the
Cardinals.
problem is that the NFC North is going to keep some other
It's
teams
gonna-
out. You're
Correct.
going to get
Having
3
three
teams
teams
in
is-
from
it's
the
gonna be a big
North
deal.
alone.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the Packers are going to win more than 10. The
Agreed.
Vikings won 10 today, right? I think they got to 10
I think they're
wins
11.
or 11
It's
wins
11.
today.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, yeah. And then you got the Lions at 12-1.
Right.
So,
So, all right. Well, we are going to have to shut this one down. We are going to go to a commercial break. You are listening to the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.
You're listening to The Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
for the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the final leg of this week's Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston. I am your host, Jacob Meadows. I'm glad to have you all back. This is my co-host today, Mr. Bryce Shepard, and a big thank you to the man behind the glass, Mr. AJ, for keeping the flow of this, keeping us in line today. We have a special fourth segment today, mostly courtesy of yours truly, but we have already hit all of the NFL games. The Kansas City Chiefs did just score another touchdown. It is 13-0. So we will hit on that as that game is rolling. But this fourth segment is going to be dedicated to the college football playoff today because it is a big happening. It is happening now, and it does have future implications on the NFL, seeing as how this is the farming system for the professional league. So, Mr. Shepard, I do know that you have very strong opinions about the college football playoff this year because Alabama is deservedly not in it. So you can go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, and I know AJ wanted to have this conversation. This is why we plugged this into the segment. A lot of fun, by the way. Thank you both talking all the NFL stuff today. It was absolutely phenomenal. Again, if I get an invite back, I'll definitely be here. Here are my thoughts on the college football playoff. Alabama went on the road and got beat by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma.
To a bad team. Yeah.
A very, very bad team that was hurt. They went on the road and got beat by Vanderbilt. They went on the road and got beat by Tennessee. Been a Bama fan for a long time. I can't remember the last time I got to say we got beat 3 times. I think it happened once outside of Saban's first year there. Do I think they should have been in? Yes, but that's my bias showing. I think it's tough to put the ACC runner-up in when Alabama beat South Carolina and South Carolina beat Clemson. You know, I think head-to-head matters. I think look at top 25 wins. Bama had a case. But as we've talked about on all the breaks, got to handle your business when it matters the most. And they went on the road twice to 2 teams that are really inferior to them talent-wise and really got dominated by Vanderbilt and got really dominated by Oklahoma. And those are things you never think you would say, talking about Alabama. But AJ, I know you got some thoughts on this as well. I would have put the Tide in, because now I don't really care to watch the college football playoff. Just kidding. I'll watch every game. But yeah, your thoughts. I think SMU did deserve it. The second half last night was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. It's the fashion that they lost. Honestly, though, because SMU, they were down 24-7 at halftime, I think. If they would have got blown out, though, then I could see.
Yeah, I think the conversation this morning lasted about 5 minutes. Hey, you got blown out last night by a team that 2 SEC teams have beat.
Right.
How can we put you in? But they came back and made it a really good game. I can't believe they lost the game the way they did.
To that long field goal at the very
they gave
end.
up a 45-yard kick return and then one pass for 15, and then they drilled a 56-yard field goal to win it.
Yep.
Shout out to Dabo Sweeney. I guess he hasn't been to the transfer portal ever in his life, and somehow he's back in the playoff. But good for Clemson. Yeah. But AJ, I know you had some thoughts on Bama, and I think you and I have been talking about it all night.
Yeah, it was just the fashion that they lost in, honestly, because like Jacob brought up, they played their third stringers in the Oklahoma game, so that's a bad thing there. Maybe if you only lost by a field goal or something like that, potentially. Then the Vanderbilt one earlier in the year,
that one hurt. That was right after the Georgia game,
right?
Too, exactly. So I think there was a really emotional high for everyone.
Saban had a big hand in that. Saban right before that game, Saban went on. He's like, the only place that you don't care if it's an away game, you go to Vandy. They can't beat you at home. And then Vandy took it personally and ended up dunking the field goal post.
The GOAT was talking a little too much before that game. But I think the interesting thing is, strength of schedule was talked about a lot today. And I think, Alabama did beat Georgia.
Yes.
They did beat South Carolina, who everyone's talking about South Carolina.
Right.
I think South Carolina should have been considered a little bit
agreed
for the playoff. I thought down the stretch they were pretty
because they beat Clemson.
Yeah, they beat Clemson. They beat the ACC champ,
Right.
But you had South Carolina sitting there who beat the ACC champ. You had Bama sitting there who beat the SEC champ. And they're both out, and I think it'll be interesting. I think the playoffs going to be interesting. It's exciting to see some of the teams in there, though. Like, who would have thought Indiana would have a chance to go win a national
Right. Yeah. Them Boise
championship?
State. Yeah.
You know,
Boise State
Boise State has a
first-round
bye. Arizona
Exactly.
State was picked
Arizona
to finish last in the Big 12, and they
finished
get a
first,
bye.
beat the
Yeah.
mess out of Iowa State to finish the season.
The Skaterby kid is nice.
Yeah,
I do
Yeah.
wish that Army would have made it. I've loved watching SMU.
I want you to make a case to AJ and I why Army should have been in the playoff.
You got it. So I've watched SMU all season, right? Like, this has been an incredible run for SMU. This is great. However, SMU lost their conference championship. Army won theirs, right? If you're not,
I mean, and Army took care of Tulane.
they did. And
Yeah.
when you look at it, if you're not going to go off of strength of schedule, right, which deservedly would have had Alabama in the college playoff over SMU with this recent loss for SMU, Army has a bigger pool to be put in. They had one loss on the season, and they were incredible all year, won their conference championship. And going off of what the playoff committee seemingly went off, Army deserved that final spot.
I mean, did you watch the Notre Dame game?
Yeah, I mean, it was rough. They played
49-14 is tough
They
to.
played one big game.
That's
and-
that's worse than getting beat 24-3 by Oklahoma.
But then how does Indiana come in? Because Indiana had the same year, and that's my whole argument.
I almost thought this morning. I was actually really thinking about it. I thought you could have had a debate between Alabama, Miami, SMU, and Indiana thrown in there because you're supposed to re-rank the teams every week.
Yeah.
Indiana's resume. Indiana just beat the brakes off of everybody that they played except Ohio State. Though.
State.
You know, so when I think Booger or somebody said it this morning. When you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat,
You get in.
you get in.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They took care of business, and unfortunately, the Crimson Tide did not. And the ReliaQuest Bowl on New Year's Eve, I'll be sitting in front of the TV saying "High Tide."
I'll be.
I like the commercial.
You like that? You like that? Yeah.
I'll be thinking. Luckily for me, right? The Oregon Ducks are doing great. They did.
He bought this shirt a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw him wear it before. Yeah,
See,
he
AJ's
did wear
got my
it
back.
before. I ain't gonna lie.
He's been a Duck fan for as long as I've known him, so I'll give him some credit here. I know he's feeling good.
This is a great year. We're undefeated. Penn State scared me a lot. I definitely thought they were going to handle Penn State a little easier than they did. Penn State made a great push there in the second half. I like Oregon's chances this year. I'm scared if there's a rematch with Ohio State, legitimately, because you never want to play the rematch.
They have the toughest road too. When
They-
you look at as the 1 seed, they're going to draw Ohio State or Tennessee.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
I want Tennessee. They don't have as explosive of an offense, and they're not as pissed off as Ohio State.
yeah, Ohio State's interesting to me. That Michigan game, I feel like you just can't let that happen. That Michigan game almost felt, it was close, but 1 point loss, right? That's what they
Yeah.
lost by
Well,
1
field
point.
goal.
Yeah, or by a field goal. That felt like the Oklahoma Alabama game.
It did.
Though.
Yeah,
Like when you were
yeah,
watching it, like that, you could tell who the better team was looking on the field, and then the other team just dominated them. Like
Ryan
there was
Day-
no reason for Ohio State to even have that game close,
No.
and didn't really drop much for that.
It's one of the
And,
best rivalry games in football.
Oh, it's amazing. I put the game top. It's number one, and then you've got the Iron Bowl as number two because crazy things happen in the Iron Bowl. But yeah, it's exciting to see some teams that you never thought would have a chance to win a national championship.
This is going to be one of the more exciting college football playoffs.
Yeah.
Like you're finally getting to see some of the little schools. I do believe that every conference championship should have a seed, the playoff, and then what's left over should be fought upon by the teams like Alabama. But
Yeah, hey, have an NIT tournament for football.
I'm all about it. I'd watch it. I'd watch it.
Wouldn't be bad.
I'd pay for a pay-per-view.
Yeah,
of it.
take the teams that are 13 to 25, put them in a bracket, and let them battle for a consolation prize.
Go to
Yeah.
town. Yeah, let us see a little more Cam Ward. That'd
Yeah.
be great. Jalen Milroe can come
Yeah,
back.
that's the tough thing about Miami. By the way, Cam Ward, I went to the University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio. That's where Cam Ward started his career. So big shout out to the Cardinals in San Antonio in the quarterfinals this week of the FCS playoffs. Big week for the Cards. Got a big win over Villanova Saturday. So rooting for them too. But yeah, I thought Miami should have had a chance because Cam Ward is fun to watch.
He's fun to watch, and I think he's going to be at the end of the day, I do believe he might end up being the best quarterback to come out of this draft. If Miami had any amount of defense all year, like if their defense could actually stop any team that they played at any given point, I think Miami would have easily gotten a spot.
Yeah, I think the hard thing with Miami, AJ, I want your thoughts. I think it was the Virginia Tech game when they overturned the call. I think in the committee's eyes, they kind of thought that was a loss. And then the Cal game where they didn't call the targeting.
Right.
And I think those are two games where they should have had 4 losses. And when you look at resumes and stuff, their resume wasn't that strong.
Stack up.
And then Georgia Tech kind of dominated them in that game, and then they blew a 21-point lead.
Yep, they didn't deserve to be in the playoff at any. Yeah,
but Cam Ward's exciting.
Cam Ward's going to be an incredible NFL player.
Yeah, AJ, who you got? Who's winning it all?
Winning the whole thing. I don't know. I feel like I could see the outcome being Georgia and Oregon. Out of that though, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
I don't know. It's tough.
Had some family graduate from the University of Georgia.
I can't wait for them to lose so I can text Jeremy.
Yeah, shout out to Jeremy.
Shout out Jeremy.
I just want to give him a reminder. I reminded him this last night. Kirby Smart's 1-6 against Alabama.
They also lost to Ole Miss.
Absolutely.
Georgia. I don't want Georgia to do it. They're good though.
But here's my thing, and Jeremy knows I feel this way. In a playoff format, Georgia's the best football team.
I look-y think this thing.
Getting to prepare week in, week out, and Kirby Smart's team's playing for a championship.
Right.
Kirby Smart has the Nick Saban aura a little bit right now, where you don't want to play Georgia. You know,
I just don't trust Carson Beck. That's the thing.
And I thought last night was interesting. I thought Georgia played better with the backup.
With Stockton, yeah.
Agreed.
I thought he could run a little bit, make some things happen with his feet.
More dynamic.
But 12 teams is pretty exciting. Way better than 4, in my
sure.
opinion.
And it's more football too, though.
Yeah. We get to watch football on the 20th all the way through the new year.
Right, and the playoffs will be going on in the NFL.
Absolutely. It's going to be amazing.
Harder on the players, technically. Much better for the fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Expanded playoff is going to be fantastic.
Who do you got if it's not Oregon?
I want Oregon to win it. If it's not Oregon, I want one of the teams that shouldn't be there. I want Indiana to figure it out. I want Arizona State to figure it out. In terms of whom I actually think it will be, if it's not Oregon, it's Ohio State. I think Ryan Day wins it all if they're able to get past Oregon. But yeah.
What about Texas?
Texas sucks. I cheered for UT. They were my favorite Texas team as a kid.
I had a UT pullover on last night.
Texas sucks.
So.
Dr. Quinn is not good. They deserve to lose to Georgia, and I don't think that they're going to figure this out at any point this season.
Oh, interesting. So you're pulling for Indiana.
Oh yeah, why not? It's Indiana.
All right.
With that, we're going to end this.
You heard it here first, folks. Jacob's picking Indiana to win the college football playoff.
Thank you all for tuning into the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.